guys, I'm Jelly, a Charlie book fanatic. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to talk about all of the books I read in July. The first book I want to talk about is a book I borrowed from the library, and that was a short story collection called Summer Days and Summer Nights, which is edited by Stephanie Perkins. It features a lot of popular YA authors, and I rated this anthology a total of 3 stars. I liked some of the stories in there, but there were also a lot of stories I didn't like. They're obviously all revolving around summer, but there were a lot of different genres in this. I recall there was even a paranormal story in there, a sci-fi story, which is called Inertia by Veronica Roth, and was my favorite short story in this entire collection. I loved it so much. It was about a boy who ended up in the hospital, and then there was this girl who came to visit him in his hospital room, and then she could enter into his memory and they could spend his last moments together. She got to say goodbye. Because he was obviously in a coma, they couldn't say goodbye in real life, and it was so heartwarming, so sad mostly, but I absolutely love this story, and it made me really intrigued in other stuff that Veronica Roth brought out. I didn't particularly like her Divergent, the first book in her Divergent trilogy, but I am very interested in reading something else she released. Overall, I found this to be a very average collection because I didn't like most of the stories in here particularly. The second book I read was, oh boy, it was After, which is the first book in the After series by Anna Todd. This series was first written on Wattpad, which is a website where you can publish your own stories publicly. And honestly, this was then made into a book series, and I read the first book. I wanted to read this first book for so long, but they didn't have it in English at my library and I didn't want to buy it, so I read in Dutch, and I don't think reading it in English would have changed my opinion on this, but I rated this 1 star because this was so bad. I could not figure out if the author meant to write an abusive relationship or not, but the love interest in this book is extremely abusive, and I honestly did not get the main character at all. Like, she got mad when he did abusive stuff, and I liked her in the beginning for that, but then throughout the book she kept forgiving him for doing this shitty stuff, and it doesn't make it any better that she's standing up for herself because she keeps coming back to him anyway, and he knows that shit. So I got so frustrated with this book. I am not going to continue on with this series because I hate it so much. So yeah, now you know my opinion on this series. After is about a girl called Tessa who is going to university and meets this college boy called Hardin. This was first a fanfic of Harry Styles, and I get why they had to change the name for this book to be published, because writing Harry Styles is a very abusive boyfriend is obviously not very good advertisement. So I am very happy that they changed the name in this book, but I am not happy I read this. Like, I could live my life very happily without ever having read this book. Like, ugh, this was pure shit. Then a book that was not pure shit, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third and final book in the first trilogy in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. And this is not my favorite book in the series. The second book, A Court of Mist and Fury, is my favorite book in the series, but I still love this book very much, and I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. The first half of this book was going very slow, and I was disappointed for a while because I thought this was so much less great than I thought the second book was. And then the second half rolled around and the action started picking up, it became more fast paced, and I was becoming very invested in this story. I was obviously very interested in the characters and their dynamics, but not a lot was happening, so I was kind of disappointed. But when the second half rolled around, that really upped my rating to 4 stars. So good. And I cannot wait for the companion novels in this series. I think there are going to be 3 more novels and a couple of novellas, something like that. But I'm very excited to see which characters in this world those books are going to follow. A Court of Thorns and Roses follows a main character called Feyre, who lives with her poor family. She's the caretaker of her family. She lives with her 2 sisters and her father in a shack, basically. And then she accidentally kills this Fey wolf, and she gets taken as a lifetime punishment by Tamlin, who is the High Lord of the Spring Court, and she has to live out her days at the Spring Court to live out her punishments, basically. But that is the premise of the first book. The first book is set up to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and the second book is supposed to be a Hades and Persephone retelling. I don't know if this was a retelling of anything, but I couldn't make it out anyway. But yeah, this book was pretty good. Like, it made me hyped for the rest of the series. The next book I read was such a cute classic, and that was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and this edition has illustrations by Ella Bailey. I rated this one 3 stars. It's about these 4 sisters, and they're called the 4 March sisters, and basically every chapter is a different adventure in their lives. They're all different ages, but all very close together in age. They live with their mother. Their father is off to war, so he is not in this book for most of it. But I absolutely love this. I thought this was so endearing. Every chapter had a little positive message in it. And this reminded me very much of Anne of Green Gables, which I also did not expect to love, but did. But I liked it slightly less, so I rated it 3 stars instead of 4. But this was so cute, and I honestly could not recommend this more if you want to get started with classics, because this one is possibly one of the least intimidating classics you could start with. Then I read my first Adam Silvera novel, and that is History is All You Left Me, in this very cute, beautiful edition. This book is about our main character who has lost his ex-boyfriend due to a drowning accident. His ex-boyfriend was involved in another relationship with another guy, but the main character always expected that his ex-boyfriend would eventually come back together with him. But obviously that's not going to happen now because his ex-boyfriend died. And this story is a story of grief. It's about the main character and his ex-boyfriend's boyfriend coming together and talking about their grief, sharing memories of their lost loved one with each other. And it was a very sad but also ultimately uplifting story. I rated this one 4 stars, and it was a very good first start for an Adam Silvera novel because I've heard nothing but positive things about his novels. Then I took a leap into the deep end and I started the Never Never novella, the Never Never 3-book novella series by Colleen Hoover and Tarryn Fisher. And there's a duo novella series, and I really like this. Like, it's not like it was particularly good or anything, but it was super addictive, and I read like all the 3 novellas right after each other because I needed to know how the story would end, because it was super dramatic, and each novella had such a cliffhanger, and also the next cover in the series would be so intriguing and made me want to read the next book in the series. So I read this entire trilogy in basically 2 days. I read it in 2 days. Yeah. And this novella series is about 2 main characters who are best friend and boyfriend and girlfriend, and suddenly they both have amnesia. They don't know where they are anymore, but they're both in high school when this happens, so it's kind of hard when you don't recognize your friends or your teachers or basically anything. But slowly in this book they're trying to figure out that the other person in this relationship also doesn't remember anything. So that's basically what the first novella was about, and it made me so intrigued because I need to know why this was happening. This is not resolved in the first novella, I can tell you that already. You need to read the other novellas to find out why, which I was kind of annoyed by, but I also was fine with it because next book, you know, another book for my Goodreads goal. Oh, and those were all the books I read in July. I wasn't so into this, like I was just scrolling through my Goodreads list trying to sum up everything I've read, and then I was just stumped because that was it. That was all I've read in the month of July. I've read a good amount of books and I'm very happy with my reading month, but let me know down below if you've read any of these books and what did you think about them, or what did you read in July? I would love to know. Thanks for watching. Goodbye!